Welcome to Shrimperscast with me, Bernie Friend.
And me, Steve Mansfield, on today's show.
FA Cup run over before it's begun as Blues suffer hangover in Scrumpyland at Yeovil.
Bernie starts internet dating down under and it's love at first bike.
We take a trip to the physio room for a spot of much needed rehab with John Gowans.
And we look forward to the first of a Roots Hall doubleheader as Solihull Moors come to town. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Shrimperscast. How you doing, Bernie?
Yeah, good. How are you, Steve?
Yeah, not too bad, mate, not too bad. Although Southend obviously didn't get a win on Saturday, we had a bit of joy, didn't we, on Sunday?
Yeah, we did. Our boys' team, Catholic United, that we've been running for the last 5 years, we finally got our first win of the season over Priory Park, a.k.a. Dog's Poo Park.
Dog Poo Park, yeah, the pitch is absolutely caked in it, which is always fun in the car on the way home. But they did really well, and we were really pleased with that.
Grassroots football, Steve.
Absolutely, yeah. No funding, no one to pick up the dog poo. Even worse than what Southend go through on a weekly basis. So, not the best of results at Yeovil, Bernie.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people had the same impression. It was a game we didn't really need. It wasn't really that big a loss going out at Yeovil. You know, we went down there again with bare bones, 14-man squad, which included a half-fit player and 2 youth kids on the bench. I mean, obviously great that Ronnie Blake and Bo McDonald got on and got a bit of first-team action. Amazing experience for those boys. But I think, you know, what's more important is these next 2 home games that are coming up at Roots Hall, trying to get some points out of those matches and, you know, getting into that mid-table pack in the National League.
Yeah, getting into the safety zone and then starting to think about, I guess, pushing on towards that sort of playoff. So we've got Pip, a.k.a. Diversity, on the show as usual. He travelled down to Somerset, so we're going to have his thoughts shortly in a bit more detail on that Yeovil game. But something that I've been wanting to ask you, Bernie, and I think some of our listeners will want to be asking as well, is I've heard some rumours you've been making friends again on the internet.
Always making friends, Steve. Friend by name, friend by nature. On the show last week, we put a shout out to Justin Rees, who's obviously heading the consortium to buy the club from Ron Martin, to come on and speak to us. I found a way to get a message to Justin, and I'm very happy to say that he came back to me and we exchanged messages for a couple of hours last week. So, you know, it was a great first day. You know, built some foundations.
Nice. It reminds me of the dawn of the internet, like Friends Reunited and whatnot. It's a new kind of dating, Bernie, that you've...
Too many friend puns here, Steve. Let's just leave it there.
So, you know, you had a good chat with him, and we're very pleased to say, aren't we, that he has agreed to come onto the show in the future. It won't be immediate, to just kind of manage everyone's expectations out there, but hopefully sort of round about December time, I think.
I mean, to be fair, he's very busy, as you can imagine.
Yep.
I think he's slated in to do a interview with BBC Essex towards the end of the due diligence period. Fingers crossed. But he offered to do a Zoom chat in November, but he's very, very busy travelling overseas on club business, I believe. But, you know, I'd rather do something face-to-face because I think you just get a better feel for each other, you build more of a rapport, and you probably get better answers to your questions when you can stare someone in the whites of the eye. So he's agreed to sit down with me for a chat in December, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, can't wait to actually get that one recorded. It's going to be a brilliant sort of exclusive for our podcast, and great for fans to kind of hear from the man himself, really, about what his plans are. So in terms of the conversation that you had via messages online, is there much you can glean about him, much you can reveal, Bernie?
Yeah, like I said, we had a really good chat. You know, it lasted a couple of hours on and off, and he just come over as being a really easygoing guy, you know, someone with a really good sense of humour, and I think the most important thing, a really good, clear communicator. He just finished a mixture of walking and cycling the 500-mile Camino pilgrimage when I spoke to him, which is a trek across the north of Spain to the most westerly coast of Spain. And I knew he'd look me up because he said to me that he'd seen that I was a keen cyclist as well, but he told me, I quote, that his bum's not bike trained yet, with ouch in big capitals. So obviously, you know, being me, I offered him a bit of advice that he obviously needed to get a thicker pair of pants or a better nappy, which I think he found amusing. And then he sent me a picture of him enjoying a cold beer at the end of his pilgrimage with a lovely sunset looking out across the ocean.
Nice.
What was interesting is that a little while later he sent me another picture of the exact same sunset with just the ocean, because he said, I don't want people to think that I've always got a beer on the go because there could be kids. Now, this was not watching. Then this was 9 o'clock at night, and I said, look, don't worry about that. We're after the watershed. I said, and to be honest, I'd imagine that most of the long-term punters at Roots Hall will be pleased to see that you like a beer, which obviously you'd earned on this occasion, because of the state of the bars at the club, with the sticky carpets, the warm pints, and needing a paddleboard to navigate yourself across the leaky toilets. And again, he came back and he said, when we had a look around Roots Hall, that he'd nearly cried when he'd seen the scale of the refurb that he was taking on. And referring particularly to the Far Post bar, I said to him, well, I hope you had your medieval fancy dress on, because the last time that mock Tudor bar had any cosmetic surgery, Henry VIII was on the throne and he was looking for another wife.
Brilliant. So, obviously over the years, you've had a lot of dealings with Mr. Martin, who now, hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well, it looks like he is on the way out. How would you compare, I know it's early days in your relationship, but how would you compare this sort of opening exchange with Mr. Rees versus your dealings with Ron over the years?
Just completely different animals. Look, it's only like one series of messages being exchanged, but and it's sometimes you can read into things the wrong way or the right way on exchanging messages. But it was very nice. Like I say, it flowed. A really good communicator, great sense of humour, and we had a bit of fun with it as well. And he was reciprocal to that. Never, ever, ever really had that relationship with Ron. He's not someone you really have a laugh and a joke with. And I definitely never, ever, ever spoke to him about the state of his bum.
Are you sure about that?
Very sure.
Brilliant. So, obviously, we don't know a great deal about what's going on in terms of the due diligence and things like that. But he did mention to you about some meetings that he's got going on out in the Far East, and we do know, obviously, that some of the consortium are pretty important kind of business people in the sort of financial world. So was any more sort of disclosed on the makeup of the takeover and the consortium at all, Bernie?
Well, obviously, when you're building up a relationship with anyone, trust is always very, very important. So, I wouldn't want to betray any trust that we may have already built up at this early stage. Obviously, he's very mindful of NDAs while they're trying to get this deal over the line. The two things he did confirm with me is that there has been dialogue last week with the trust, with two other consortium members.
Yep.
And I'm sure that the trust will have been quick to stick their brilliant dereliction and decline paper under his nose to see that we don't want another repeat of the Martin model here. But from what I've heard, they've been very productive chats, and there's also a willing to seriously discuss, as we've brought up last week, fan representation being part of the board going forward. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, brilliant.
But when we were chatting about fixing up a date for us to get him on the pod, as I say, he said he was very busy in November meeting with people and flying overseas. And one of these people who I think is... We touched on Gary Lockett last week because he's a great name on the consortium list because of his relationship with the club, his history with the club. But the one that really interests me, who is one of the people I believe Mr. Rees is going out to see in November when he's flying around the world, is Jason Brown. I think it's been well documented that he is a Southend fan. He was there on that historic day when Benji got his goal at Bury to put us in the second tier for the first time in the 90s. And when we thumped Newcastle 4-0 at home to go top of the old second division, which is obviously the championship now. He's based in Hong Kong, and he is the founder of a company called, let me see if I got this right, which is called Arcan Capital, I believe. Now, I had a little look at Arcan Capital just to see what they're all about. And I found it was established in 2013 by Jason Brown, based in Hong Kong. And in 2001, in the Hedge Week, which is an information outlet for all things hedge fund, it said that they had around $1 billion in assets under management, targeting credit distressed and special situation opportunities across the Asia Pacific region. Now, I'm no expert on finance, I'm no expert on hedge funds, But I just wonder if Mr. Brown is in fact going to, if you say, may be acting as the banker for the consortium going forward. What do you think about that?
Yeah, sounds obviously really interesting. Again, I'm not a financial expert, but I do know that hedge funds tend to be pretty wealthy, and people involved in hedge funds tend to be very serious players. So I think just on the face of it, the fact that you're quoting billions there in US dollars hopefully means that the financial backing for the consortium is going to be sound and going to be, there's going to be enough money there for them to execute the plans that they want to put in place. Well,
yeah, I mean, that was 2021, so hopefully it'll be even more then when that figure was quoted. But again, I'm no expert in this field, and is that money in assets? Is that money in the bank? I don't understand how that translates. But it'd be interesting to see what comes of that. But he's obviously a very, very, very important and potentially influential figure in buying the club going forward. I think the last thing to say about Justin is that he said he's hoping to be at the game against Solihull Moors on Saturday. Mm-hmm. So officially, I believe, making his Roots Hall debut. So I'm sure he'll get greeted like a messiah by the masses. And he's also hoping to be at the Ebbsfleet game on the following Tuesday as well, where he's asked me to come and say hi. So hopefully I'll get to bump into him and have something more to report next week.
Oh, your first face-to-face date after the internet, introduction. You'll get to see if his profile picture is the same as what he looks like in real life, or if he's had it all photoshopped up to make himself look better. Yeah. And vice versa. He'll be judging you.
Yeah, well, I'll be getting my fake tan done, and I'll be getting my old tarantula eyebrows out and my duck lips as well. So I'm sure we'll have a quacking good time.
Those highlights look like they need doing again though, Bernie. So
grey lights.
Get yourself down the down the salon. Brilliant. Thanks so much for that, Bernie. So as I mentioned earlier, Pip, aka Diversity, made the trek down to Yeovil on Saturday to watch the Blues in the FA Cup qualifier, and he caught up with Paul, and we can have a little listen to what he had to say about the game now.
Well, it's another weekend and another away day, and quite a journey down to Yeovil for you, Pip. So how'd you get on? Did you make it there in one piece?
Good afternoon, Bernie and Paul. Good afternoon to all your lovely faces behind your devices there, whether you're listening in the car, on your phone, on your computer. My name is Diversity, and what a week it has been yet again following Southend. Getting down to Yeovil, always a fun journey, getting down to the middle of nowhere in Somerset, but being a guy who lives on the other side of London, as opposed to a lot of people who travelled down on Saturday, it was relatively straightforward for me. I felt more for all the chaps and chapesses who had to drive back to Essex after the 2-0 defeat.
It is a very long boot back to Southend from Somerset. You are quite right there, Pip. So we expected a very tough encounter given Yeovil's form, and it was, wasn't it really? So how was the first half?
Going into Saturday, we were all well aware, I'm sure, that Yeovil's home form and just form in general was superb. They were undefeated in 7 coming into the game on Saturday versus us. They had scored 21 goals, including ex-striker Rees Murphy, chipping in with a few here and there. And they kept that home form absolutely superb. They scored early on. Their first goal, so preventable. Free kick, not cleared properly, easy goal at the back post. And it was an uphill fight from there. We lost Mooney at the end of the first half due to a stomach bug, I believe it was, and it gave Bo McDonald a chance to come on. I believe, really, that was the standout of the first half, was his introduction.
Yeah, definitely. He certainly does look like a bright, young talent there for us. But and it's always difficult to bounce back from that early goal, isn't it? So any positive signs going into that second half?
I think we just touched on it there, chaps. The positive, I'd say, from that second half was Bo McDonald playing that full 45. He honestly, when he came out for the second half, he just got stuck in. And we love to see that as away fans. We were going into that second half, we all wanted the team to just come out a bit more, go on the front foot and attack, and Bo did that superbly. I'll give a mention as well to Ollie Coker. Again, he filled in for that role for Cav Miley, and he did it well, I'd say, winning the ball back, looking to go forward and cause trouble. Those two young lads, I say, positivity of the second half all the way through.
Absolutely, Pip, and it just goes to show, doesn't it? I mean, the importance of our academy, having these quality young players again coming through, and in many ways, a cup run might be like an unneeded distraction, given the priority must be surely to stay in the National League. So, what are your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, chaps. I really am a bit stuck with this one because going into the game on Saturday, I was well up for a cup run. Then obviously, after we lost, the typical say is, oh, the league's more important anyway. We don't need a cup run. But it really would have been nice, not only financially, but just, a welcome distraction from the league would have been nice. But given how many bodies we actually have fit and able, I actually think maybe now's not the right time. And we have the FA Trophy coming up in a few months' time. And by then, fingers crossed, we're taking over, we have more bodies in, and we can push forward with that trophy. But I just think the FA Cup's come too soon for us.
Yes, indeed. We do have the FA Trophy and, a cup run could still be on the cards. But back to that Yeovil match. So any of the Blue Boys stand out for you as man of the match?
I think you know who I'm going to say here, chaps. I covered him Saturday in my match day vlog, which, if any of you don't know about, is diversity over on YouTube. But it has to be Bo McDonald, closely followed by Ollie Coker, I'd say. But 16-year-old lad, we touched on him in just a couple of minutes ago. He's come into the men's game, oldest cup in English football, and absolutely taken the game by the scruff of his neck. He got Yeovil players worked up. They were pushing him over, getting in his face, because they could see he was doing well. It was his debut. He was out to impress. He did the basics exceptionally well. He's an exceptionally bright prospect for us, and I hope, give it maybe a year or two, we're going to see a lot more of his face in and around this club.
And so do I, Pip. He really does look like a great talent, doesn't he? So, big thanks as ever, Pip. And, we'll see you down at the hall ready for the Solihull Moors on Saturday.
Thank you, chaps, for having me back on. And thank you to all you lovely people behind your devices for listening to me again. Hopefully, I haven't bored you all out. And I will see you all on Saturday for what is going to be a crucial game and hopefully the comeback that we are well waiting for. Come on, you Blues!
Big thanks as ever to Pip, aka Diversity, there for his match reports. Always brilliant, always great to hear from him, and always very insightful. Now, moving on to today's guest interview. Bernie, who have you got lined up for us today?
Well, this week we got invited down to the Southend training ground at Boots and Laces to enter the Porter Cabin of Healing, which is the domain of the chief backcracker, master of the manipulating of groin strains, and alchemist of revitalising and sweet-smelling oil rubs, and that's the physio, John Gowans. Okay, so here I am at Boots and Laces, Southend's training ground, sitting in the physio Porter Cabin with first-team physio John Gowans. Good to see you, John.
Hey, Ben, you okay?
All good, thank you, mate. I think the first thing to ask you is, you must have both one of the toughest and most important jobs at the club at the moment, working with such a small group of players and keeping them on the pitch.
It is, yeah. It's a big challenge, something that probably we knew pre-season was going to happen. So we've kind of geared things around that. I mean, I've got the help of Steph, who's the strength and conditioning coach, who's been here 4 or 5 years, or even longer, I think, he's unbelievable in what work he does to help us. It's hard, but it's a challenge, and, we're hopefully coming to the end of that challenge now. So hopefully things will get a bit better and we'll be able to not work so hard.
Yeah, well, that's what we all like that, don't we?
Yeah.
But obviously, as you said, it is hard. Let's hope, fingers crossed, the sale goes through and you get a few more bodies in the place, which will make life easier for you. But obviously, as we've just touched on, I mean, that's the thing. The National League is very demanding. It's a lot of games. It's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent quite a lot of time with it. Obviously, with Dagenham, we spend quite a lot of time in there. So I kind of know what's required with the players and when they are going into the games and when they're coming out of the games, what preparations and what sort of things we need to prevent. So it's a hard league. It's a hard league physically, but it's a hard league to get out of as well. It's probably the hardest league to get out of. And it takes a big toll on players, both physically and mentally, So it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but I'm sure come the end of the season, it'll be a challenge that hopefully we've done the right things.
You say, interesting, you say there, it's also, as well as a physical challenge for you, it's a mental challenge for you and the squad. I mean, I think of you sometimes, you must spend a lot of one-on-one intimate time with players when they're getting back on their feet. I think of you sometimes as maybe being a bit like, as well as a physio, a bit of a club chaplain. I mean, do you get confided in?
Yeah, sometimes you do. I'll be up and honest with you, I'm not the most easiest person to come forward to because I'm quite abrupt. I tell people what I think and some people don't like that. Which is okay, it's fine. But I mean, if I see someone who I think's really struggling, I will pull them aside and just sort of reassure them, make sure they're okay. But if they really do need to talk, then yeah, I'll take them away somewhere, even outside the football club, go for a coffee somewhere, or if they feel more comfortable within this environment, we'll have a chat when everyone's away and things like that. Yeah, so I mean, in my career, it's happened a few times, and people say football's brilliant, the life and things like that, but on the flip side of it, it takes their toll. It does take toll.
On this side, it can be a lonely life as well,
yeah,
can't it?
massively, Ben. I mean, when people are injured and things like that, you know, they're separated from the squad to a point. They work longer hours. Take, for instance, we've had games Saturdays and Tuesday for probably the last month. So the injuries themselves have probably had, out of that month, probably made 3-4 days off.
Yeah.
You know, so they've been in Saturdays, Sundays, on a Wednesdays when all the lads are off and things like that. And when they're recovering, they're in the gym working their socks off. So it's a life that can be very lonely for an injured person, especially if they've got a long-term injury. When people have long-term injuries, you try to approach it differently. You try to be more, how can I put this, more friendly towards them, and in regards to giving them more time off, giving them more time to spend with their family, but at specific times within that injury. So it's a bit different. It is a bit different.
Yeah, because they can feel very isolated. That's when the darkness creeps in mentally, isn't it? And
Yeah.
you know, you miss the banter with the boys, being part of all of that. It's very hard. So it's great to hear that you do that.
Yeah.
Again, we're saying about how hard it is with such a small squad for someone like yourself. Are you more? Is it at the moment? Is it more prevention or cure?
Both, to be fair. Prevention's a big thing now for us. You know, like we say, we've only got the 16 players as such. So preventing injuries is massive. So me and Steph work very closely with Kev in regards to their training sides and their workloads and things like that. After games, especially the last month that we've had, their training time on the pitch has been very, very limited. And even then, some of them haven't trained because of slight issues that they might have of not being 100% fit. So again, we've gauged training around them, how they're feeling, how they've recovered, the type of game that it's been. And to be fair, I think we've managed it reasonably well. Not brilliant, but you're never ever going to get anything brilliant. But we've managed it as well as what we can.
Well, yeah, I think I said to Kev when he came on the pod, I touched on him. I mean, with such a small squad of players, again, when you're trying to recreate that tough match atmosphere in training, it must be so hard because you must wince every time someone puts a tackle in.
You do. And to be fair,
you must do as well.
Yeah, I do. I sit at the window there.
Yeah.
In
with a blindfold on.
Yeah. Start banging my head against the wall.
Yeah.
But to be fair to Kevin, the coaching staff, their sessions are very good, very well organised, very high tempo as well. So
which you can see by the way they play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it has to be. So in lots of ways, football, the modern day football, maybe isn't as physical as what it was when I first met your good self.
In the black and white days.
In the black and white days. So football itself's evolved and changed. So the physical side of it maybe is not as bad as what it used to be.
Okay. What is there? Is there a regular injury at the moment that you might be finding?
Not really. I mean, we're getting a lot of fatigue, which is going to happen. You know, a lot of muscular type fatigue issues going on. Again, that's something that we're managing. We're getting a few little ankle things with Nathan. Obviously, Nathan Ralph who's been out for a few weeks with his ankle issue. But that's down to the hard grounds, again, because we've not had much rain. And again, the actual workload of that, what they've been going under as well.
What's your typical day down here at the training ground?
Right, so I cycle in from Little Wakeren, get here for about 8:30. Basically, have a chat with the coaching staff before then, leading up to me then assessing players from 9 o'clock onwards. Then after I've assessed them, I'll speak to the manager again to see who's training, who's not training. Then we'll treat the players. Those who need to go into the gym will go into the gym. Players who need strappings and rubs will then have it before they go to training, which is normally before 10:30. Then obviously players will go out at 10:30. I'll be, again, with the injuries, either out on the field or in the gym, working them. Then they'll have lunch for an hour, and then they'll come back in the afternoon and do another gym session as well. Okay. But it all depends on where they are injury-wise, where they are in the stages of injury.
Yeah, we're talking rehab programs, aren't we?
Yeah, and things like that, you know. So it'll depend on that. I mean, like, say for instance, Colin, who had an ankle issue now, he's now putting more work through his ankle than what he did 2-3 weeks ago. You know, so it's a case of a process that you follow or try and follow as best as what you can. In assessing them day to day, see how they feel, see if there's a reaction to more workload that you put through them, and judging it from there.
Yeah, and again, at this time more than ever, you've got to get that right, spot on, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And what's your typical match day? When you're away, for instance, on an away match, how does that work?
Again, if it's overnight, if it's not overnight, on a match day, say we're travelling on the day, so we'll leave normally, depending on where it is in the country, we'll normally leave around about the 9 o'clock mark. We then obviously travel to the hotel, go to the hotel, have some pre-match. Normally me, Ian the kit man, and Steph will leave early to go and set the kit out for when the players arrive. They'll come, again, match days is all about strappings and prep work and things like that. So most of that's done prior to 2:10, where the players then go out.
And what about afterwards? Is there much stuff post-match?
It can be. I mean, obviously, Steph does the warm down, things like that. Then it's about assessment of injuries, if there is any, or just assessing people who have been injured, seeing how they are, see how they recover and things like that. And if necessary, get them in the following day.
See what work you've got for the next week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And normally what we do is, or what I do, is we get them in sometimes on a Sunday if we have a game on a Tuesday. If we haven't got a game on a Tuesday, then, unless it's a serious problem, then we'll give them the Sunday off maybe and go from there.
Have there been? Well, there must have been. You say back to when we first met, in the early 90s. There must have been a lot of changes in the science of this since you've been doing this job.
Massively. It's massively. I mean, obviously now you get a lot of college educated, university educated people coming into it and things like that. So the standards of medical cover and medical care are a lot more intense. The FA, to be fair to them, have brought in courses that you're required to do for on match days and match day treatments of such when you're on the pitch. So the basic care of players has gone through the roof in that respect. You know,
any particular things that you've really liked to get involved with?
I mean, I'm more of a football person, so I like sort of on the days. The rehab side of it, on the football side of it, and things like that. That's what I like to do. But on likes of assessment and things, you know, they've brought in protocols and things like that, which is great, because obviously with what happened to us, if you remember, Mr. North and things like that.
Yeah.
There's protocols in place that should hopefully never happen again.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a bit about that when we talk a bit about more your career at the club. Are we still in an era though where if you're desperate to get a player on the pitch, you'll have an injection? Does that still happen?
Not necessarily, no. Circumstances will dictate that, you know. Sometimes players will dictate that, you know, because it's at the end of the day, it's their body. But now, that sort of process now is virtually extinct. Okay. You know, it's virtually extinct. There'll be cases where, say you're in a World Cup final.
Yeah.
Okay? It's the pinnacle, you know, and you've got something and you're not 100% and you go to the physio thing, can we have a jab?
Yeah.
It will depend on the circumstances around that. You know, I'm not saying that will happen, but there's circumstances that may allow that to happen.
So you're not going to be giving out many injections then, are you?
No. Punches maybe, but not injections.
So obviously, as well as working with Kev, the manager now, you knew Kev as a player.
Yeah.
How was he on the injury table?
He was okay. He was, to be fair, the only issue, I mean, Kev's told the story about when he first came here, he used to have his ankle strapped. So after a game, I went up to him, lifted his leg up, started taking the strapping off, and he's looked at me as if I was a loony. He went, "What are you doing?" I went, "No, I'm taking the strapping off." "Why?" "Because we need to use it from training." And that was how it was then back at the time. You know, we had to use.
Not
use
Tottenham
things.
now, mate.
No, exactly. That's what I said to him. You're not at Tottenham now. So that's what I said to him. Listen, this is where you are now.
Yeah.
This is what we have to do. So
welcome to League One.
Exactly that. You know, and you know, I like to say I've known him for 20 odd years. So it was fantastic to see how his career developed and how he went on and you know and did what he did was fantastic.
And what he's doing now.
And well, unbelievable.
What's the worst injury you think you've had to deal with, if you can say?
A few broken legs.
Okay. Anyone in particular stick to come out?
Mel Capleton was one.
Yeah.
In a friendly or reserve game against Brentford where he snapped his tib and his fib. There was the lad at Derby County. I don't know if you remember.
When David Regis in the last minute. Yeah.
Collided with him.
It was on the TV that game, wasn't it?
And snapped his tib and fib and dislocated his ankle.
Yeah.
So probably them two are the kind of the worst that you'll see as such in injuries as such.
I mean, it must be hard when you see that happen. I mean, is it a case of it's quite what you do? You have to be emotionless. You've just got to get them in the best shape you can possible, free of pain. And I mean, what do you do there?
It's strange, Bernie, because when you're on, you there's like a switch goes into your head, and it's like sort of bang. It's like I know what I need to do. This is what we need to do. This is what, and you go into sort of training mode. Yeah, you do, and it's a strange thing. You know, we had that last year with the lad at Yeovil, who fractured his leg when Colin fell on top of him. and it was just straight away you just go into automatic pilot sort of thing, you know. So that's what the training's there for, and that's why you do it.
Yeah, of course. Your own career. Obviously, before you became a physio, you obviously, I found a lovely picture of you that I sent you the other day of you in your playing days.
Years ago.
And you obviously youth skipper at Coventry City. So what happened with John Gowans, the player, to becoming the physio?
So I was lucky enough we won the FA Youth Cup. So we beat Charlton in the FA Youth Cup in 1987. So that's how long ago it is. And I was lucky enough to get years pro out of that. And from that, you go from youth football to men's football as such. Yeah. I couldn't do that jump. Couldn't do the jump for whatever reason, ability-wise or whatever. So what happened?
You must have been decent. Have been the skipper of the youth team. You must have had ability.
I had a gob on me basically. I used to shout and bully people.
Organiser. In old money.
That's the right way of putting it. Organiser. So listen. Don't get me wrong. I'm not that type of person who blows me on trumpet, but. Yeah, I was okay. I had a few clubs after me when I was younger and things like that. And I chose Coventry basically because of the club that they were. You know, they developed their youth, they pushed their youth through. They couldn't buy people as such, so they had to rely on the youth department as such, and that's why I chose them. And then, like I say, I was lucky enough to actually win something and then get a year's professional contract and become a professional footballer. Couldn't make that jump and got released. And it was quite funny how I got released. We played Leeds United on a Tuesday night, and a young lad called David Batty was playing for Leeds, and me and him just kicked 10 bells out of each other. And I always remember.
So sorry, this was the first team. So
no, this was the reserves.
Okay,
this was the reserves. So then I go in and get changed, and this was like sort of come towards the end of the season. So you're talking round about April time.
Okay, so you had a nice tussle with Batty. I can imagine was a good one to have a tussle with trying to make his name.
It was. So then get changed and all that, and I'm on my way out, and I was in digs with a lad called Graham Roger who helped. Well, he was sub in the FA Cup final in '87. So he pulls me and says, "Oh, John Sillett wants you." And I thought, okay, I know what's going on. So go back and sit in his office and things like that, and he's going, "Listen, we're going to have to give you a free transfer." I went, okay, no problem. He went, "Look, son, we'll do everything we can to help you," and things like that. I went, fair enough. Then he started crying.
What?
Started crying. So John was my youth team coach in my first year.
Okay.
And to be fair, we hit it off straight away. And he always sort of had like a kind of little bit of a soft spot. So I'm sitting there, he's crying, and I'm thinking to myself, but it's my career now that's gone down the pan. And I was ended up, instead of him consoling me, I'm going, it's okay, you've got a job to do, and I know the job is like this, so it's fine. I'm okay, don't worry, and all that. And anyhow, so I got released, so and I couldn't get another club, so I went up north and played Northern League football, which I call murder ball. And it was hard. It was really, but it toughened you up.
Yeah.
And then, luckily enough, I get a phone call. I just had an operation on my toe. Got a phone call off John, and he says, "Listen, there's a position here to come back down to Coventry and train up to be a physio."
Oh, right, okay.
So at the age of 20, I had to make a decision. So it was either continue my dream to want to push on and be a footballer, or crave a new pathway and become a physio in a new job. So I chose that. I chose the latter. So I went back down to Coventry. So there for 4 years.
Was you there when they won the FA Cup under John?
Yeah, I was a player. Well, that's when we won the FA Youth Cup on the Wednesday.
It's okay.
So we won on the Wednesday, and the first team won it on the Saturday.
Double.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And it was the first, funny enough, it's the first trophy that Coventry won.
Yeah,
major trophy.
I remember it well.
FA Youth Cup.
Yeah, that header from Keith Ouchin is in FA Cup folklore, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was there for 4 years and things like that. And then Colin Murphy, God bless his soul, who recently passed away.
Well, I was going to ask you about Colin.
Yeah.
Because you came to Southend in the early 90s.
Yeah, 93, March 93.
10 years in your first spell. You're in your second spell at the moment, having returned from Dagenham last September.
Yeah.
So you had 10 years here. I worked it out. I had to get my abacus speeds out, and you'd served under 9 permanent managers.
That's right.
And obviously, as you say, Colin Murphy was the first manager you brought here, who passed away sadly in 1992. Yeah. So what's your memories of Colin?
Wow, what a character. He was his notes in the programme were probably the best I've ever heard.
Well, I'll stop you there because I was going to say about his notes in the programme, because Colin Murphy would have been like countdown champion, wouldn't he? He was a literary genius.
Yes, he was.
English eccentric, you might say. You needed a dictionary to read his programme notes, didn't you? And I pulled a couple out, and I don't know if you can decipher for me, but one of them was talking about being cautionary in his programme notes, he said, "Life is not like a bowl of cherries, but more like a bowl of Hungarian goulash. Hot, sticky, and at times intestinally negative." Make of that as you will. I like the description. And, again here, we cannot fall into the trap of committing practical haplography. Now, words have been my life for a long time. I couldn't tell you what he was going on about, but I'd like to have him on my Scrabble team. But yeah, a character.
But yeah, brilliant. Yeah, he was. I mean, listen, he brought me down here. So again, another person in my life who I can't thank enough, brought me down here and went from there, really. I mean, it was strange because probably in about 4 weeks after he brought me down here, he got the sack. So it was one of them. I was like, wow, right, what's going to happen here? And then obviously Baz came in and...
Well, Colin obviously had a really hard job. He took over from David Webb, who'd obviously done such a great job taking the team up to the second division for the first time. Obviously, when you've come, we're into season 2 of 6 consecutive years in the Championship, all of which you served here, which is the most successful era for the club league-wise. And Colin's legacy, God bless him, would have been signing Stan Collymore, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Which, he signed Stan Collymore. He had the foresight to bring him in. And again, I don't think some people don't realise, but Stan was having, as well as shooting us to second division, but which would be Championship now, safety then. I think his sister was ill at the time. He was having a lot of problems.
Sure.
And obviously, I think he's had a few mental health problems. And we were talking about mental health problems at the start of the interview. And I remember myself, when I was at that age, sort of, very, 20, 21, out of work for 6 months, very bleak career-wise, didn't know what was going on, too much time on my hands to think about things. And I had a few, troubles with isolation, like we spoke. And I remember a friend of mine and his father, Andrew Peacock, sadly not with us anymore. I'd not gone to see Blues at the start of that season. They pulled me along to see us play Birmingham on a Tuesday night, and we beat them 4-0. And I was stood in the North Bank. It was the first time I saw Collymore play. And it was like watching a man playing with kids over the park, picking the ball up on the halfway line, doing about 4 or 5 players and smashing one in from 20 yards. And that got me out of my ruts, if you like, and got me back on that. Got me back on my feet, and I started going again all the time. Talk to us about Stan. I mean, what's your memories of Stan?
So, I mean, obviously, it was only a short period of time I was with him, but yeah, I mean, leading up to me coming down here, I came and watched a couple of games, one against Sunderland and one against Notts County, and it was like, wow, what's this kid doing at this level? When someone's got ability, you can see it. In the stand, like you were saying, the stand thing was his power, his pace.
Well, he had it all, didn't he?
Yeah.
For a big guy as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For
Mobile,
a big lad, he had the whole works. And you're thinking, wow, this kid could go on and on and on. So as a player, you're thinking, wow, this kid's got something, definitely.
I'm joined once again by Mr. Paul Hill for Paul's Previews. Paul,
feels like I should have a jingle.
You should. I mean, you're the musician, mate. You make your own.
Oh,
but budget cuts are what they are. So, get the guitar out, mate, get recording, and you'll have your own jingle. How you doing, Paul? You all right?
I'm very well. Had a busy week, and great to hear from you and see you again, Steve. And how are you? Everything all right?
Yeah, all good, thanks, mate. All good. Similar, pretty busy, but keeping occupied, which is always good. So you sound a lot better than you did last week when we had a chat, and you were a bit under the weather. So you've recovered from your virus?
Yeah, nothing. A hot bath and being a ginger, I don't need to get it that hot. So steamed it all out and fighting fit again, ready for Saturday. Good stuff.
Yes. So on to Saturday. Big game. Huge. Against a team doing very well. Solihull Moors coming to Roots Hall on Saturday for a 3 p.m. kickoff. What have you got for us, Paul?
Well, I can't wait for this game, and they are absolutely flying Solihull at the moment. Did you know they've only lost 1 game this season?
Wow.
Their record is, it's incredible. They've won 9, drew 6, lost 1, and their away form is even better. They're yet to lose on the road. So, records are there to be broken, aren't they? They've won 7, they've drew 3. They can score. They've hit 21 on the road, conceding 8.
Wow.
But the last game, I think it was the penultimate one, they lost to Aldershot 1-0, and then they conceded 2 as well in their last time out. So, they can't keep a clean sheet in the minute, and this could be the time where we could bounce back from the disappointment of that Yeovil exit and just get back to the league, get back winning, cards up top. Come on, boy, give us the hat-trick.
Seems like quite a good time to play them then, from what you're saying. So they've had a an amazing start to the season by the sounds of it, but there's potentially goals to be had for our guys. I think, Southend shouldn't really fear anyone in this league. We know, don't we, that without that 10 points, they'd be up there challenging. So, they're as good as other teams in this league. So, yeah, not really much to fear. Any particular players in the Solihull side that we should be looking out for?
Well, they've got their danger man, Josh Kelly, who's banged in 7, I think, already this season. But they can score from across the park. Right. They've got midfielders who can score, defenders are popping up with goals. And that's why I think it's going to make it a really entertaining game, because so can we. We've been hitting goals from midfield. We've got Harry Cardwell banging form as well. We've seen the young lads who come through with Ollie Coker and Bo looking really exciting. So I think it's all to play for here. And I think, going up against the inform opposition is going to be a great test for us, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's the first of 2 games at home, isn't it? So we've got a couple of games on the spin at Roots Hall. So, hoping to get off to a good start against Solihull and then taking that form into the Ebbsfleet game. So, yeah, absolutely looks like a cracking game at home. And we hope to see as many of you there as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to it. I mean, if we can nick a point, I think a good entertaining draw with Solihull would set us up nicely for that Ebbsfleet match. Like you say, we've got to pull away now from the bottom. We're on 14. Like I say, if we didn't have our points deduction, being on that 24, we'd be sitting just below Solihull anyway. So it would be, it's a top of the table clash this, regardless of where we are in that league. So it's going to be a great match. It's going to be great. I'm really excited for it. And I'm going to stick my head out and go 3-2 Southend.
Wow, bold prediction there. Lots of goals. So let's hope for it. A nice, entertaining Saturday down at the Hall. Good stuff. I'll see you there then, Paul.
Absolutely. Cheers, Steve.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that wraps up another action-packed episode of Shrimperscast. Thank you so much to John Gowans for being our subject for the guest interview this week. Big thanks to Pip, aka Diversity. Massive thanks as ever to you, Bernie.
Thank you.
And to Paul for interviewing Pip and giving us his match preview. And last but not least, massive thank you to all of you guys out there listening. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast. And on that note, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Him being Bernie. Thanks for listening, guys, and hopefully we see you next week. Up the Blues.
Up the Blues.